Maghanap uli kayo ng Marcos or someday, somehow, somewhere, that fellow will be elected.
Since before the 2016 election, even during campaign period and from the start of his presidency up to this time, we have heard, and keep on hearing President Rodrigo Duterte, from time to time, in front of various interviews and conferences, mentioning his admiration to the leadership of former President Ferdinand Marcos, and in his grand accomplishments for the country.
The best na presidente dumaan, Marcos. Ito sa utak, I said he was the most enterprising president that we ever had.
He even particularly mentioned Bongbong Marcos as his choice to be his successor after his term. He wants this only son and namesake of the former President Marcos to be the next leader of the country. As an intelligent leader who cares, not just for the present but also for the future of the nation, he knew from the bottom of his heart that no one is qualified to handle the current situation of the country, and even continue his legacy, but only another Marcos.
What he actually said is a real statement of exasperation and a genuine wish to step down if there's a better leader, no, or if there's a qualified leader to take over. And he has said that he thinks that Senator Bongbong Marcos is one of the better qualified leaders to succeed him. There's developments and he will win the protest and becomes vice president. Yes, he will make. If he wins if he becomes vice president, perhaps the president will make through his word. No, he will step down. Because what he's worried about is if we were to use constitutional succession, then the successor may not be qualified. And then he expressed a preference on who he thinks will be qualified. So, if he wins, I think he has said it before. He has said it before that if he wins the protest and he's declared as vice president,
Bongbong Marcos was, sabi niya, dinaya siya, baka. Kung hindi siya dinaya, talagang manalo siya.
He knew that the future of this country is at stake, and he certainly do not want that the Filipino people will be placed again in the hands of somebody who can be manipulated and held again as a puppet for the oligarchs and elitists, whose aspiration is only for their own benefit and selfish interest. Duterte knew that no one, in his innermost mind and heart, is capable of leading and making the Philippines great again but another strongman, who can soar up high like an eagle, and bring the country back to its golden era. Only the one, who has been with the former president all along, can be entrusted, and that is Bongbong Marcos.
Sinabi rin ni Duterte na kailangan ng Pilipinas ang panibagong Ferdinand Marcos.
Kailangan mo ng pareho ni Marcos. Titino to at kaya mo. At wala nang... ngayon, kung kaya ni Bongbong Marcos yung ginawa ng tatay niya, mas maganda.
President Duterte, with all probability, knew that the late President Ferdinand Marcos was ousted by people who have been fooled by elitists, was a victim of black or yellow propaganda. His mother even led the anti-Marcos revolt in Mindanao during 1980s. Nevertheless, Duterte keep emphasizing that his father was a real Marcos ally, indeed, a loyalist who never abandoned Marcos even in the darkest moments of his life.
No, my father was a cabinet member of President Marcos during the first term of his presidency. My father was one of the two who stood by Marcos in his darkest hours.
As now the leader of his country, Duterte experiences all kinds of blackmailing, threatening, cursing, profanities, slanders, and even death wish from his opposers, who happen to be the same corrupted people who mocked, ridiculed, and slandered the former President Marcos, and the ones responsible for his ouster, which is the same thing they are currently shouting against President Duterte. Duterte loved his countrymen just like President Marcos. But the communists, the rebels, the liberals, who are always using the abused dogma of democracy to overthrow a nationalistic and patriotic government, are doing all their best to advance their globalist agenda and bring the Philippines to their so-called New World Order. That is why they are doing all they can do, even to the point of making their fellow countrymen as human shields, to destroy Duterte's leadership just like they did to the former President Marcos. These Western elites' political partners, the Democrats and Liberalists, has been using all their might to influence the Filipino people to hate their president who is standing for the nation. In doing so, they are only showing, and keep on showing in front of their fellow countrymen, that they are the real enemies and destabilizers of the good government. They want to enthrone by force another yellow puppet, someone that can be controlled and manipulated by money, so they can hinder the grand plan of true prosperity that was already prepared by Ferdinand Marcos for the Filipinos of the future. They They want to keep the poor people in their poverty so they can manipulate them by money, drugs, and other addictions, and stuck the Philippines as a third world country forever. Marcos and Duterte wants total independence of the Philippines from the hands of Westerners, so the country will become a truly liberated and powerful nation called as Maharlika, which means freemen, and no longer as slaves. Their opposers wants the country enslaved by Westerners so the Filipinos will worship them as superiors. But Marcos had another plan. He wanted to make the Philippines great again, just like the former times where the archipelago, during its pre-colonial era, was the headquarters of the great and respected Malayan Empire, which dominated and ruled Southeast Asia in the ancient world.
Republika ng Pilipinas, gagawing Republika ng Mahárlika. Naging usap-usapan kamakailan ang pagpapalit sa pangalan ng ating inang bayan matapos itong mabanggit mismo ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa kanyang talumpati.
Philippines because it was discovered by Magellan using the money of King Philip. Kaya pagdating ng ginawang Philippines. Pero okay na yan. Balang araw, palitan natin. Actually, tama si Marcos. Panahon ni Marcos, tama talaga si Marcos. Gusto niya palitan, Maharlika. The Republic of Maharlika, because Maharlika is a Malay word and it means more of serenity.
With divine providence, that is, the consolidation of the world's wealth, safe kept and secured by Ferdinand Marcos, the Philippines will become a great nation again. A strong country that is not manipulated and enslaved by the elitistic colonizers. He desired that his country will become a powerful nation again, and respected by other countries. Duterte certainly knew Marcos' plan. So instead of following the footsteps of his mother who led the People Power Revolution in Mindanao, to oust Marcos during that time, President Duterte seems to be following the footsteps of his late father, who was the governor of Davao City during Marcos' regime. Duterte knew that the Filipino people, his beloved countrymen, has been brainwashed, and many are, up to this time, still being fooled by many selfish and corrupted politicians, fake news media outlets, and even by the leaders of ruling religious sector, who, together with the power-hungry oligarchs and communists, and foreign elitists, conspired to destroy the Marcos family's reputation. The huge gold assets, legally owned by Ferdinand Marcos long before he became president, and the Yamashitas looted treasures that President Marcos recovered and safe-kept for the welfare of his countrymen, were reported as ill-gotten wealth, so Marcos will be hated by his people, and consider as thief and plunderer. 30 years ago, Cory Aquino's PCGG never won any case against the Marcoses. The court has even found out that these assets were privately owned, and were not stolen nor ill-gotten. The Marcoses suffered too much from the lies of these envious people, history was distorted, and the worst is, the country plunged into total poverty when they ousted their great leader.
Ibinasura ng Sandigan Bayan 2nd Division na mahigit ₱1 billion ill-gotten wealth case na inihain ng Presidential Commission on Good Government laban kina dating Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos, asawang si Imelda Marcos at iba pa. Sa desisyon ng korte, nakasaad na hindi sapat ang mga ebidensya ng PCGG para mapatunayan na umaktong dami si Bienvenido Tantoco para kay dating Pangulong Marcos. Kaugnay niyan, hindi rin napatunayang kumuha ng sobra-sobrang yaman sa ilegal na paraan si Tantoco at nagkaroon sila ng conspiracy ng pamilya Marcos. Ito na ang ikalawang forfeiture case laban sa mga Marcos at kanila umano'y mga kasabwat na nabasura ng Sandigan Bayan ngayong taon. Noong Agosto, ibinasura din ang 102 billion pesos forfeiture case laban sa mga Marcos at umano'y kanilang crony.
Many people are asking, why did the Philippines debt exploded during the Marcos regime if we really have the gold? Many people do not know that in 1971, President Nixon of the United States shocked the world with his announcement of devaluation of dollar, making it a fiat currency and no longer backed by gold. Many Filipinos do not know that the real reason why Marcos have to loan huge amount despite of the presence of his enormous wealth is because the Nixon Shock has made gold reserves of none value, and countries have to comply in this new resolution. Nixon actually did this to save his country's reputation being the strongest country, because during that time, the US dollar became of lesser value compared to other currencies, simply because they do not have enough gold reserves to back up the value of their money, making it less significant in the world market. This is the real reason why commodity money, gold-backed currency, was replaced by fiat money, or paper bills without real physical value. The Federal Reserve then, through that infamous act of President Nixon, has made all countries to be enslaved by debt by making the central banks comply on their new rule. The Philippines was not exempted in that new market rule, even though the country legally holds too much wealth through the brilliant strategies undertaken by President Marcos. Marcos have to comply in this new rule so he can cope up with funding for all his projects. Nevertheless, Marcos knew that even if he loaned too much to get funds, they are very little, and can easily be paid off by the growing interest of all his assets deposited in various banks around the world, which today, the interest since time of their deposits, more than 60 years ago, have accumulated too much that even the whole world, not just the Philippines, can be sustained forever. In these critical times, where the whole world is plunging to global recession because of coronavirus pandemic, many investors, business owners, banking institutions, corporations, and even governments, are in gold rush. They knew that the gold, not the fiat money, are the truly stable commodity needed. It has been said that the one who controls the gold controls the world. In these times of worldwide lockdown, the IMF admitted that the world had entered the global recession period, greater than in market crash of 2008, and can even be more dangerous than on what happened on the world market after World War II. Take note of this. The world market is looking for a return to gold economy. When that happened, what country today do you think will become as the wealthiest? You are correct. It's the Philippines, being the official holder of 2/3 of the world's assets. President Marcos' intelligent and ultra-advanced move was a legacy to the Filipinos of today. If he didn't secure these gold reserves in his time and wasn't placed under his custody, these wealth may have been cornered and placed under the control of the elite who wants to dominate the whole world. Duterte wants the Philippines to be for the Filipinos, and for them to regain their independence from misguided elites who want to dominate them. Duterte knew that only a Marcos can make the Philippines great again. He knew that only another Marcos can take back the stolen glory of the nation and regain its lost identity. Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. is the man of the hour. With the help of the now awakened Filipino majority, we can take our glory back. We can take our gold back. We can make the Philippines great again. We can make apologized greatly and felt so ashamed of all the evil things they have done. Fortunately, the hero has the heart of forgiveness, and all that he wants is progress, goodness, and success. We know that Marcos' comeback is not to take revenge but to work for the implementation of the grand plan for the Philippines. Revenge is in God's hands. God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. He is the rewarder of those who know how to love God and love their fellowmen. Bongbong Marcos will make the Philippines great again. All of us, whether you are a supporter or an enemy, will benefit from the great blessings that awaits the Philippines in her great future.
Mrs. Marcos expressed her desire to witness her only son, Senator Bongbong Marcos, to run for president next year. But Senator Marcos has yet to decide on his plans for 2016.
Gusto ko siyang magpresidente. Pero yung pagka-presidente, hindi na sa akin yan. Hindi sa kanino man. Nasa Diyos yan.